When we think about love, we usually imagine warmth, acceptance, a kind of effortless connection. But when it comes to ego, things change. Ego feels more guarded, a bit distant, and maybe a little intense. Love and ego have a strange relationship because they're always pulling us in opposite directions. Love connects us to others, invites us to open up, to give. But ego isolates. It stands guard. And while love is gentle, ego can be demanding. This back and forth is something we all face, and it doesn't just affect how we interact with others. It shapes our happiness, our relationships, and in many ways, our soul. Imagine there are two voices inside your mind. One is gentle, encouraging you to be open, to trust, to forgive. That voice, that's love. But there's another one, louder, always ready to jump in, always wanting to be right, to control, to protect. That's the ego, and they don't really get along. It's like two wolves inside of you, each fighting for control. One wants connection, compassion, and peace. The other wants validation, power, superiority. And the wolf that wins? It's usually the one you feed. Now let's break down what love and ego actually are at their core. Love isn't just romance or affection, and it isn't about giving in order to get. Real love is about giving without expecting anything back. It's that feeling of empathy and wanting to uplift others, wanting to connect in a way that isn't about personal gain. Ego, on the other hand, is a little more self-centered. It's the part of us that wants recognition, wants to be in control, wants to prove that we're enough. It's our armor. And though it can protect us, it also has this knack for keeping people out, keeping us from experiencing the kind of deep connection we crave. Imagine a guy named Daniel. Daniel is driven, successful, and confident. But his ego? It's always lurking in the background. Whenever someone criticizes him, his ego kicks in, and he immediately feels the need to defend himself, sometimes even lashing out. When someone else gets a little too close to his level of success, he feels the urge to push forward, to remind everyone and himself that he's at the top. Deep down, Daniel wants love. He wants people to see him and respect him. But because his ego's running the show, he's putting up walls. Friends, colleagues, even family members feel like there's this invisible barrier between them and Daniel. And the crazy part? The very thing he wants most, connection, trust, warmth, his ego is keeping it just out of reach. The thing is, this is the cost of living through ego. Ego makes us feel separate, makes us think we're the only ones who matter. It convinces us that we have to defend ourselves at all costs, even when that means pushing people away. But love? Love has a different strategy. Love says, drop the walls, let people in, see others as part of you. Then there's Emily. Emily tries to live her life through love. She knows how powerful ego can be. She can feel it rise up sometimes, tempting her to judge or control. But she's learned to take a step back, to recognize when it's her ego speaking, and to choose a different way. Emily understands that real strength isn't about dominance or always being right. It's about being vulnerable. When someone criticizes her, she listens. She absorbs, she reflects. When she makes a mistake, she doesn't hide it. She owns up to it, learns from it, and moves on. Because of this, Emily has real, genuine connections. People trust her. Friends feel safe confiding in her. Her relationships are open, and there's a sense of ease around her. She's not fighting this constant inner battle of needing to be right, needing to prove herself. By choosing love over ego, she's not just bettering her relationships, she's finding inner peace. Of course, this doesn't mean living through love is easy. Far from it. It's challenging to be vulnerable, to let go of control, to allow people to see you for who you really are. But here's the thing. When we do choose love, we start living a life that feels genuine. We're not hiding, not pretending. We're just us. So how do we actually put this into practice? It's one thing to say, choose love. But ego is sneaky. It's always there, always waiting. The first step is simply recognizing it. When we feel that urge to be right, to defend, to prove something, that's ego speaking. Just noticing that voice is a huge step. Then, in those moments, we can ask ourselves, what would love do here? Sometimes, love means choosing empathy over judgment. Instead of jumping to conclusions about someone else's actions or intentions, we can try to understand them. What might they be going through? What fears or insecurities might be driving their actions? Another key practice is letting go of the need to be right. Ego loves a good argument. It wants to prove that it's on top, but love Love values peace over being right. In a disagreement, we can ask ourselves, would we rather be right or would we rather feel connected? One of the hardest but most powerful steps is practicing vulnerability. Ego fears vulnerability because it sees it as weakness. But love knows that vulnerability is strength. When we're open, when we're honest, when we let people see us, flaws and all, that's when we create the deepest connections. And finally, we can make it a habit to ask ourselves, what would love do right now? In moments of stress, of anger, of judgment, that one question can shift our perspective entirely. Instead of reacting out of habit, we act out of intention. Choosing love over ego is not about being a saint. It's about freeing ourselves from that endless, exhausting battle of constantly needing to prove, to defend, to protect. When we operate from love, we feel a kind of peace that ego simply can't offer. We let go of the constant tug of war between wanting connection and fearing it. We start to see others as part of us, not as competitors or threats. Imagine a world where more people choose love over ego. A world where people aren't obsessed with proving themselves, but are focused on uplifting one another. It doesn't mean the ego won't still try to take over. It will. But each time we choose love, we take back a little more control. We connect a little more deeply, live a little more fully. So next time you're faced with a choice, remember, ego isolates, but love connects. Ego creates conflict, but love brings peace. And in the battle for your soul, love will always be the choice that leads you home. Thanks for being here with me on this journey. And if you're ready to start choosing love, let's keep going, one step at a time.